The opinion of Democratic Senator Peter Welch: Biden should withdraw for the good of the country. The stakes this November could not be higher. He says, I have great respect for President Biden. He saved our country from a tyrant. He's a man of uncommon decency. He cares deeply about our democracy. He has been one of the best presidents of our time. But I, like folks across the country, am worried about November's election. The stakes could not be higher. We cannot unsee President Biden's disastrous debate performance. We cannot ignore or dismiss the valid questions raised since that night. Blah, blah, blah. He basically goes on to say, for the good of the party, you get the idea. I want to stress this as we enter this segment. In 2020, March of 2020, The Atlantic published Stay Alive, Joe Biden. Yeah. Democrats need little more than your corporeal presence. Little more from you than your corporeal presence. There were questions about whether Biden was too old and whether he was dying, whether the plates in his brain would negatively impact his ability to do the job. And that conversation was 4 years ago. We have since then seen so many videos. Trinidad shot of pressure. Bad calf care, next nulrescent, whatever it is, he's muttered. So we know, those of us that have paid attention. So has Peter Welch. Peter Welch knows this. There is not a reality in which a senator who is more embroiled in politics than we is not aware of these videos and what is afflicting the Democratic Party, because it affects everybody down ballot. For him to come out now and say, we are shocked to have seen this, he's spitting in your face and he's laughing at you as he does. Democrats right now that are acting like they did not know, they are lying to you because they are evil.
Especially Senate Democrats who worked with Joe Biden for years and years and years, right? So there are people who were elected around the same time as him who are still in office who are saying like, everything's fine. I don't see a problem. That cannot be true, right? If I worked here, I work here every day. And if I stopped being able to speak correctly, not that I'm super articulate as it is right now, everyone in this room would notice. I mean, it's just not possible that his colleagues in the Senate are not aware of what's going on, especially because he's such a public figure.
There's that phenomenon where if you hang out with somebody every day and they're getting fatter and fatter, you don't notice it. Whereas people that haven't seen them in a long time are like, whoa, you've gained 15 pounds of fat in your face. So that might have been happening with Biden, but that just indicates that they're stupid and they're not perceptive.
Right. And they worked with him intensely for years in the Senate. Then he became the VP. Yeah. Then he took some time off. He still hangs around Washington and they're still seeing him. I mean, to your point, yes, maybe if every single day you see someone, you don't notice all of the changes, but they are familiar with him. They knew him at his prime, so to speak, and they have still been exposed to him. You can't tell me they don't see any change at all. That's just lying. I think Peter Welch is interesting because he's the first senator to come out and say, you should step down, because it's like 9 members of the House who have said something to that effect at this point. But I don't know how you feel about this. I really don't think Biden is going to step down. I think he's going to continue with both the current presidency and his efforts for re-election.
I think we can't let it matter whether Biden stays or not, because these Biden policies are destroying the country. So we can't let the Democrats do a bait and switch right now. Like, look, if the country was on a good track, or even just like, I don't know, it's kind of a toss up, the Democrats wouldn't even be talking about switching out their guy, no matter what he said on the debate stage. They would actually have something to run on. The Democrats have nothing to run on right now. They're not going to talk about the border because they're destroying our country through illegal immigration and through fentanyl. They're not going to talk about the economy. Americans are getting destroyed right now by Bidenomics and by this economy. And the list goes on. We're on the cusp of World War III. The Democrats won't run on any of this. All they're trying to do is fearmonger about Trump, about Project 2025. And they're going to try and use this Biden bait and switch to give them a pass for voting for all these Biden policies. They all need to be held accountable. I mean, my opponent, Peter Welch, all these guys. Okay, if you guys knew or you think that Biden is declining, why were you voting for his policies? Oh, and better question is, who's creating these policies? Because it's evident after watching that debate performance, it's not Joe Biden creating these policies. So who is it? That's what Congress should be trying to get to the bottom of right now. Who is making the key decisions in the Oval Office during the Afghanistan withdrawal, during the Ukraine crisis? Who just authorized American missiles to be shot from Ukraine into Russia, putting us closer to World War III than we've been since the Cuban Missile Crisis? Because it's clear it wasn't the guy that was on that debate stage, and he's the person that ostensibly the American people elected to be the commander-in-chief. So we can't let the Democrats skate with this theater. I don't think it matters who they put forward. We got to hold them accountable for the damage they've done to the country.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that they're, Tim Burchett, who we had on last night, was saying we just can't get complacent, because it's not just about the presidency. It's about the down ticket races and having a Senate, House, and also, I would argue, state level offices that are willing to they want to pursue policies that are really for the American people. And I think some of the downside of constantly being in a news cycle that's like, what's going on with Biden? Is he dropping out? Is that there are lots of things happening that we are not paying attention to. That being said, it is fascinating to see how many people are starting to feel comfortable enough to say, like, oh, no, he's not the same. I mean, George Clooney just penned that op-ed where he was like, the man who was at the fundraiser I was at 3 weeks ago was not the same one as 2020. Sir, why did you not say something 3 weeks ago? Like,
right, exactly.
Where have you been this whole time, except for the fact that you obviously have some side of clout as a Democratic fundraiser?
Yeah, I think that not getting complacent is key, because Republicans, we did this in 2022. We said, oh, it's going to be a big red wave. Things are trending so badly in the country. People make a different decision. Look, the Democrats know how to do very, very tricky things when it comes to getting enough ballots across the finish line. That doesn't mean they won the argument politically. That means execution-wise, their machinery was able to get ballots across the finish line to get them to the top of the ticket. And so I fear they're doing that right now behind the scenes. We know they already are. And Republicans are going to get complacent and think, well, this is in the bag. There's no way that Trump and the Republicans lose. So stay focused.
I got bad news for everybody. David Joyce is in a safe Republican district. He had no reason to block the subpoena of Merrick Garland. In the past 2 elections, it's been 2-1, Republican and Democrat in his district. He is in a safe Republican district. So he just sold out for no reason. He just burned it all down for no reason.
That's why I think you should have a statement ready to go. If you're going to vote against something like this, you should be like, here is my reasoning. I may not agree with it, but you should be prepared to publicly say, this is the decision I made, before someone has to say, send a reporter or someone in your office to say, why did you vote that way? Again, maybe there's a statement out I haven't seen. I checked everyone's X account. Maybe they have something on their website, but typically X is the fastest way to get statements out, and I didn't see anything.
Force them to read the bill. Because if you can't make a statement, it'd be challenging to make a statement on something you didn't read. That's like me in college in lit class. I somehow got through the class, but I didn't run for office.
I mean, they should read the bills they're voting on. But in this case, if you know the gist of the bill and you're like, well, I'm voting against it. I don't want to hold Merrick Garland responsible for anything. Then
same deal for Turner. Turner won the 2022 midterm 61-38. Same margin as Joyce. These guys are in safe districts. They just burnt it down because they hate you, because they are scumbags. Pieces of trash.
I want to know the rest of their voting record, too. I mean, I don't know anything about them, so it's hard to say, like, what else or why they would be appealing. But again, like, if this is the only way I'm learning about you on sort of a national stage, I really wish that you had posted a statement, because I think we should know.
Is it like a standard
procedure?
Is it a single bill, like a single topic bill?
It was a resolution.
Just one.
And it was unilateral authority of Congress, meaning it didn't have to go to the Senate or anything. Yeah. It was literally just, he has defied Congress. Congress will now fine him money until he complies. And it was for information that could potentially be damaging to Joe Biden, which everyone seems to want. This makes literally no sense. These guys, I'm willing to bet, sabotaged this because Johnson was like, don't let it pass.
Did Johnson vote against it too?
He was against it from the get-go and was like, look, I'll vote on it if it comes up, but I don't know why we're even doing it. Like, Biden's doing bad enough by himself. And the sentiment was typically reported as that if Biden's in this scandal already, we don't need to make Garland the boogeyman. And if Republicans want to go to Congress and play politics instead of upholding the law, it's exactly why they suck and why everybody... It's why people don't like them.
Yeah, it sounds like they got some bureaucrats that are in safe districts assuming they're going to get reelected because their constituents are heavily in the...
Because if they did it in a soft red, then the populist base would say, later, we're not voting for you, and then the Democrat would win. But you get a couple guys in safe red, they can betray the voter base, they can betray the rule of law in this country, and they'll probably end up winning anyway.
That's sort of because the bureaucracy is tangled with these dudes financially, and they don't want to disrupt the power structure yet. They're waiting till like they can do a swap, like an Indiana Jones style. They need the idol before they can take the sack of gold, or they need this bag of sand. So like they're like, no, it'll destabilize things too much if we put this through. If we lose our Merrick Garland goes to jail, that's unprecedented. We can't allow that kind of disruption.
Mike Johnson went into the what did he go? He went to the skiff, or where did he go with the deep state? He got the briefing, and he comes out and he's like, I used to agree with my colleagues on the issues and the excesses of the FBI, but, once they brought me in the back room, I kind of understood where they were coming from, and now I'm on their side. And it's like, what did they smack you up with a sock full of oranges or something?
That was confusing to me. Massey said he was in the skiff with them, and Johnson basically lied. That whole story was a make-up lie. I don't know. Yeah.
Do you think Johnson will get reelected as Speaker?
I don't know.
Do you have an opinion?
It's hard to say.
I know you're not there day to day.
If you look at how challenging it was for McCarthy to get elected, 20 plus votes or so, I think it's going to be a fight because, look, I mean, I know some Republicans don't like this, but Republicans aren't afraid to have their own internal wars out in public and say, hey, I don't support leadership. I'm going to go against this. That can be frustrating to some people sometimes. I think it's a good thing because we're actually saying, hey, we are elected to represent people back in our districts, and we're going to be accountable to them regardless of what our party says. So I think it's key that we take a strong majority and we have a good, strong majority of people that are on the new right, populist right, whatever you want to call it, that are actually going to wield power properly and stand up to whether it's Merrick Garland or standing up to the guys in the SCIF. I mean, I worked in SCIF for most of my military career and some time in the CIA. And it's like the people that they send to the Hill to give briefings, they're not just analysts that are giving briefings. Those guys are ops officers. They're trained at handling people. They're trained at pushing an agenda, and they have an agenda that they're pushing. And we need to understand that going into it. And Congress's entire job is to hold them accountable. Otherwise, no one else will. And so I that's very dangerous when you have people that are just going to listen to whatever's put out in the SCIF.
Yeah, I'm a bit demoralized after this. I'm not sure how I feel or what's going to get me over that hill again. But if two deep red Republicans are going to take a dump on the floor of the House, it's going to take a lot to get me back on track to actually want to vote for any of these guys. Look, like I said, what am I going to do? We got Riley Moore and we got Trump. Those are our options here. The Senate race, I don't know if I care about West Virginia Senate race. I'm probably going to abstain. I don't give a crap. But of course, I'm voting for Riley Moore. In fact, I don't even need to. He won. You know, he won the primaries in deep red, and I'm hoping he can do some good. But in terms of the sentiment, wow, the party is weak, ineffective, spineless, jellyfish losers. They are out of touch with the country. They don't know how to lead effectively. The leadership is a bunch of crackpot tyrannical morons like McCarthy, and now Johnson's taking a dump all over the floor. These people are trash. So I'm just like, I mean, look, I know Riley, so I know at least we're good here, but that's not confidence building for what anyone else is supposed to think. It's a tee-up. It's Congress's authority to do this. It is equality under the law. And they said no. So I'm over it.
I guess I can see why it's discouraging, but I feel like it makes me want to be more careful and pay more attention to who I'm voting for. Because I think, again, you have to really know who you're sending. And especially if, I don't know anything about these Republicans, so it's hard for me to comment on their career or their record or anything like that. But hypothetically, if you have a Republican or Democrat who's in a district that knows they're going to get reelected, they've been in office forever, it would be easy for the voters and for the candidate to become complacent, to take that for granted. And it would mean that you have to stay more on top of what they're doing. I think so often we get sort of, we're so angry with the federal government, and then we should be, but we have the option to try and change it. It's so easy to be like, well, I forgot you guys, I'm not going to do anything. But then it continues on. Like, you have to sort of be active to be a part of it. We
have to make sure that these guys in Ohio, and the guys in California too, I guess, but it's California, so what can you expect from California? But Ohio, safe red districts, they need to pay a very serious political price. What they have done is one of the most infuriating things, one of the most egregious violations that that I've seen in a long time. I've seen a lot of stuff. Adam Schiff, what a scumbag. But these guys, you know, there's a reason why the lowest level of hell is reserved for traitors and the disloyal. Because Adam Schiff's a scumbag, but he tells you, you know
where he stands.
Right. As long as you do your research, you watch the news, you know the man is evil and he's lying to you. But these guys are supposed to represent the rule of law and the opportunity for us to vote in a new group of representatives who are going to actually uphold the law. And like I said, you want to argue Bannon should be in prison? Fine. That means Merrick Garland should be as well. But they do not uphold the rule of law. So whatever that political price must be, I am sick of the political gamesmanship. Yeah. Whatever the argument is where, you know, you mentioned in the SAVE Act, these Democrats try to block the SAVE Act, but as soon as it hits the floor, they get permission to vote in favor of it so they can go back to their districts. This must stop. Yeah. The lies, the manipulation. So whatever the deal was, Johnson going to these guys and saying, just vote to block it. It'll die, and you're going to face no consequences. You will face consequences. We are going to make you pay a political price. I am going to put up billboards in these districts, and I'm thinking maybe it just says, you know, they're corrupt. That's it. That's all it says. They support corruption, corrupt individuals. I'll see how much money I can sink into this. And maybe other people will as well. Maybe I make some phone calls and ask some people if they agree. We should just put up and just call them corrupt. They're not going to lose their elections, but maybe the guy selling hot dogs on the street corner will tell them to F off and won't sell them a hot dog.
Or say that they don't want people to have IDs in order to vote. In Ohio, that will swing
wasn't
hard.
the vote.
Oh.
This was not holding Garland in
God.
contempt for defying congressional authority.
Maybe they should just come on Culture War and explain themselves. I mean, I think that's one of the interesting things about this platform is that you could talk to them directly about it in a way that a lot of people who are as frustrated as you are would want to hear.
They're not going to do that.
I mean,
these guys don't even post on X.
Ask, but we don't know until we ask.
Sure.
What if they do? A lot of people I mean,
they don't even post on X.
They're active on X. They just haven't really stayed on
not in months.
No,
I looked up their accounts. They barely ever post.
Their rep accounts are active. They were both promoting bills.
Right, where they have a staffer doing it for them.
I call a staffner, book them in, have them come sit in. I mean, that's what's interesting, right? Like we are in a position where, and we being people who are on the internet, who are interested in the internet, they're able to sort of find information in ways that traditionally you had to just go through the press secretary. You had to wait and to see if Fox News had them on. And for a lot of congressmen, I hate to say it, but they're just not high enough profile to necessarily get an automatic call from a major outlet. But this is a different era. You have a lot of journalists that would take interviews with people about issues like this when maybe they wouldn't in the past.
I do think you got to take a look at how your representatives vote. You have to actually do the hard work of digging through the congressional record, which is challenging. I mean, even if you follow it every day, it's hard to find who voted on what. The resolutions are a little bit more clear cut. You got to look at who's funding them. That's another big thing too. Mm-hmm. It's publicly available, but you have to dig for it as well. How their individual accounts, their individual re-election or election campaigns are funded, the PACs that support them, because that's going to tell you a lot about how they're going to vote or how they do vote. I also think it says a lot when these people are very, very buttoned up and they only speak through press releases, or they'll only go on Fox or CNN for a canned 30-second hit where they know automatically what the questions are going to be. The people that won't do in-person town halls where they answer any question from anybody, like my opponent, when she does a town hall in the district, you have to submit the question to the staffer ahead of time. It's pre-screened, and she communicates through press releases. And the candidates and the politicians who won't come on podcasts, there's so many podcasts out there right now. It doesn't even have to be a big one. I try to not say no to a podcast because there's so much sound bitiness out there. When you get a chance to actually explain things and just have discussions with people, I think if you're asking to represent the district, or even bigger than that, a state or the rest of the country, you should be open to long form discussions to show people exactly who you are and how you think.
I think people are scared of long form discussions.
Oh, they are.
Don't
for
think
sure.
that they can handle it. And I mean, you should talk about this because you have really been active online, but I think it's not as intimidating a platform once you kind of get into it, unless I guess you're really trying to hide something.
If you're confident in what you believe in, then it's good. I view it as a good thing. A lot of political consultants will say you should never go on a podcast right now. And I'm sure a lot of political consultants in DC would point out like 10 things I've probably done wrong tonight. But I think that's an old arcane way of thinking. I think the younger voter base, and then just the way that the country's consuming media now, they want to see that. I think there's a reason why Tim's done so well, why Joe Rogan has done so well. I think we're social creatures, and I think people are really craving the interaction that you get from podcasts, where you can actually get to know somebody and how they think and where they stand. And so I think people who avoid those platforms, I feel like that silence is becoming more and more deafening.
Yeah.
It indicates that they're afraid in that either they have secrets and they don't want them to slip out, or that they've done some horrible things, and maybe those would be secrets that they want to keep.
Yeah.
But when you're free and open, man, it's the easiest thing in the world is to sit and talk to people.
Yeah, for sure.
That's from my experience anyway.
And it's interesting because you could be selective about it too. Like you could still want the Fox interview, the 5 minutes on whoever show, but there are lots of local podcasts. Like I'm sure in whatever state any politician is in, there is someone who has a local podcast that is specifically interested in the political happenings of their state.
Yeah.
And potentially, like your congressman coming on that podcast would really assist them and also give you access more directly to your constituents in a way that being on Fox News doesn't really. There's sort of another step in between national TV and local TV now, because you have these internet-based platforms that can be either national or local.
International. It's global. This technology, like if you're a musical artist, you put your stuff on the internet, the entire world sees it.
Yeah.
Like you're a politician, the entire world knows who you are now.
I get a lot of young people now at my events that will come up and they've just got their phone and they're like, hey, I have a podcast. It has 50 followers or whatever. And, I try not to say no because I appreciate the opportunity to reach people that I normally wouldn't reach otherwise. And I think it's awesome. So I don't say no to most podcasts.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe and we'll see you all there.